A wonderful good day and welcome to Real Talk. My name is Gaby Burt. I'm Managing Director for the Journey International. And Real Talk has become something out of a brainstorming session with our team for trying to make the work that we love so much and we could recommend to every human being on planet Earth more accessible, more available, more easily understandable. I have been with the Journey, so the Journey and Brandon Bass. Brandon Bass is the founder of the Journey. I came across Brandon's work, which is based on emotional healing 25 years ago. I so fell in love with this work that I'm still here today. So a little bit older, a little bit wiser. And one of the things that I wanted or came out of my very, very first event that I attended with her was I wanted to shout from the rooftops that this work is so powerful, so deeply healing, and everybody should do it. Well, I've been shouting loud. We have reached thousands of people around the world. Brandon has written a book called The Journey, and it's now translated in 26 languages. While we were still touring, that was pre-COVID, the Journey was actually available in 44 countries around the world. So we would kind of continuously travel around the world. And I'm very happy to say that with COVID, we actually were forced to bring our events online. And what we have learned and what we have experienced since that time has been mind-blowing. It's been absolutely phenomenal. And Brandon's Journey method is something that is for everyone. And it can take care of physical issues, of emotional issues, of relationship issues, poverty issues, fear issues. And one of the things that is so potent right now is, especially with what's going on around the world, it seems like we're in a cooker pot somehow. You know, what's happening in Europe with the war in Ukraine and Russia, and this looming fear that this could escalate is one of the things. And this would and will affect the whole world should that happen. And then there's been catastrophes, there's been catastrophes in Australia, in South Africa, and it's kind of everywhere. What happens naturally is that once something, this fear consciousness is out there and highlighted, everybody's kind of holding on to everything. And then we can't spend anything and we can't do this. And one of the things that is so sad to me is because especially during a time like this, it would be so powerful for everyone to be able to use this work to kind of connect with oneself, to come home to oneself, to think with clarity, to stand in clarity, to heal some issues from the past that we've been carrying forever, And so this particular one time, we want to throw our doors wide open. We want to make this work accessible to as many people as possible. And we've actually, for the first time ever in 26 years of the Journey, given an incredible silly discount of 75% to actually make a 3-day workshop that is usually priced at $497 at 147 euros. And so we'll talk a little bit more about what the Journey is, what the Journey does. And it also says on the intro, it's me and guest. And today I have a very, very special guest. His name is Arnold Timmerman, and he's been with the Journey a very, very long time. And he is also co-hosting events with Brandon and has done so also for many, many years in live seminars and now online. And Arnold, thank you so much for coming in, for joining me today. I'm really delighted to have you here. And I just wanted to really hand it to you and ask you to use your words of what the Journey is to you, what it has done for you, what you have witnessed and noticed with the people that we have served in the Journey. And also I'm seeing people coming on. Please bring your own questions during this 45 minutes that we have. If you have any specific questions that you want to ask me or Arnold, please feel free to use the chat box and we get to you. But for now, I'm going to hand over to you, Arnold, first. Thank you.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. And just to give a bit more context, yes, I have been with the journey since, it was 2003. That's where you and I met as well, Gaby. And it's been years. And I've even been away for a couple of years because of a child being born, my own books wanting to be written, some other coaching methodologies that I wanted to try out. And I came back to the journey a couple of years later as well, due to me finding out in Spain, where we're living, that people were asking for things that I couldn't give them because that would be the journey. And what I meant by that was the journey has such a specific way of working with issues that are driven by emotional root causes, that unless we would go there, the issues would not be resolved. And that's where you and Brendan and I actually sat around a table in Holland at that time, which is where I'm originally from. And we discussed, hey, could we start again with journey work here in Spain? And from that moment on, I came back on board, was in so many different roles. And it's a natural thing. The journey has become part of my DNA because it is, to me, one of the if we're talking about real talk, this is a chance to get real. It's a method that allows you to get real with yourself, to know that certain things don't work anymore. And that's how I came to the journey as well. I had an emotional issue and a spiritual issue, funny enough. The emotional issue was I was, since the age of 4, that I was consciously aware of, actually, on the hunt for my one true love, which is insane when you think about it. But I remember as a little kid, and then, moving onwards into my childhood and my young adulthood, always on the search for this one woman, and never knowing why that was there, what I needed to do about it. And funny enough, of course, all the relationships became shorter and shorter and shorter because it was never working. And once I got dumped by, at that point, my true love, and it was the woman of my dreams. She ticked all the boxes, literally. And she dumped me over the phone, and that was the last time I ever spoke to her. It sent me into this cocktail of emotions, and I had been raised emotionally quite open and aware. I could see my dad cry at times when something was going on, or my mom would be okay with emotions. So it was never really suppressed in that way. And yet what I had not learned was that emotions could come all at once. So what happened when I got dumped by my true love, I was awake with like a cocktail of hate, love, fear, terror, like a sort of a fear of death, rage, loneliness, and it all came together. And I was like, this is insane. And I thought I was going insane at that time. And it was my mum who I called after a week of being up all night and working through the whole day as well. And I said, I'm so tired. I don't know what to do with this. There's all these memories of my past relationships, and there's all these emotions coming together. I cannot pinpoint them anymore. They said, well, Brennan Bayes and the journey, have you heard of that? She's coming to Holland in 2 weeks' time. Maybe give that a try. And that's what I did because I had nothing to lose. So that was me really getting real with, I need something. And I was not into medicine or drugs as such. And I didn't really want to go to a medical doctor with that issue. I wanted something to be found on the inside instead of some kind of symptomatic stuff. Mm-hmm. So that was one part. And the other part was that I'd been on a spiritual path as well from the age of 10. And I'd had lots and lots of experiences, and they were either very much in a body awareness, if that makes sense. So I was aware of the spiritual experiences, seeing things before they happened, or seeing things that other people wouldn't, or hearing things, or having sort of dream state experiences, whatever you want to call it. And I therefore had my different mentors throughout my life, even as a child, telling me how things worked. And then I got this advice when I got these hands that were burning as well. Like, they told me it's like healing hands. I didn't have a clue. I was just a boy, who was playing sports and trying to get the right relationship and going out with the other boys, and I was not in it for any kind of healing hands or anything like that. And I got told, well, you need to start, using your healing hands to heal people, and you need to start reading auras and whatever. And if you know me, that's not me. That's really not agreeing with who I am. So I was very confused because I had my spiritual awareness, I had my experiences, I had my guidance through my mentors, and I read a lot at that time, a lot of metaphysical stuff as well. So my mind was exploding with all the knowledge and therefore linking it to the experience, and it was not embodied. And what I mean by that, it was missing sort of very much the emotional connection with it. And when I came to the journey, and especially the journey intensive, which is what you refer to, the first 3 days that we get spent with Brennan, it just all fell into place. It was like the missing link between my spiritual life, my emotional search in a way, and just day-to-day life. And I found that the journey method gave me not a path for further emotional or spiritual development, but it gave me tool to deal with everything that life was throwing at me in the past or at present. And that's what I've been loving with the journey again and again. It's been so rewarding every time that I use the journey tools that you learn at the journey intensive straight away. To use those tools whenever I felt or still feel stuck or feel like there's an emotional response and it's huge to some kind of circumstance. And I'm like, what is going on? For instance, when COVID happened, I was about to teach a journey seminar in Holland at that time. And I traveled from Spain to Holland. I was there getting ready. And on the day that we had to start, that was where all the borders started closing all of a sudden. And we did not know what was happening at that time. I woke up at 7:30 in the morning and I was in terror. My body was like shaking. I was like, what's going on? I'm with a friend. We're doing this seminar together. So much to look forward to. And here the body is responding and I don't know why. And I put on my phone and I saw all the information about all the borders closing, flights being canceled. And I was like, oh my goodness, what's showing up? And with that, there was such a huge response that the only thing I knew how to deal with that emotion was by using the journey process. So I went straight into what you learn at the journey intensive, into one of those processes. And the actual cellular memories and the emotions attached to it were completely resonating with the energy and the circumstances that were changing so rapidly. And the circumstances were about you have your own choice or not. You are locked into a situation. You can travel or can't travel anymore. You will be dealing with love or with and life, therefore, or with death. And it all had links to memories of me when I was in the hospital when I was 4 years of age as well. And I was in a children's ward with kids who were actually undergoing chemo at that time. And I knew already at that time that some of them wouldn't make it. And they were talking openly about it. And it was this push and pull in terms of if I go home to my parents' love, that's great. But I also experience love here in this prison that is hospital where there's also death. So that all came up as a memory, and it was not something I could think of. It just happened because of circumstance. And it's just one of the many, many examples that I have from my own personal experience, having done so much of this journey, of the journey process myself throughout these nearly 2 decades. And also I am working as a seminar leader, but also as a coach and a therapist as well, one-on-one with people, using the journey again and again, and finding these links between our inner world that is driven by things that we're not cognitively aware of because it's stored in our body, in our cells, and then life circumstances that are changing and challenging, and it fires up this response of like an emotional response or an emotional shutdown or any kind of version of that. So I just love it, as you can tell. Well, but also to other people here, I love it because of it. It makes it so simple to work with such powerful tools that are so simple, dealing sometimes with, which is what I've experienced as well, dealing with issues that have been with us for 20, 30, 40 years, and resolving that sometimes within literally an hour and a half. It's just incredible. Uh, that's
I
the
know it.
realness of it.
Yeah, and I see that so often, because both you and I, we co-hosting events with Brandon, and it never fails to amaze me how much someone's life can shift in not just the weekend, but in 1.5 hours.
Yeah.
And if you process this, what we call a journey process, which is basically a guided introspection where you open through emotional layers into something that Brandon calls source, or Deepak Chopra used to call a long time ago infinite intelligence, or we can call it an unconditional love, a presence, a vastness, whatever. It has so many names, but you open in that, and from here we actually can find, or cellular memories pop up, things that we weren't able to process at the time when they happened, like when you were 4 years old probably and ended up in a hospital ward, and then whoops, you're 30, 40 years old, and then there is this, as you're confronted with a situation that you think everything is about this, everything is about COVID making a decision, and then you open and this old memory pops up out of nowhere and is simply something that we weren't able to deal with at the time. And even though there is fear because there's unresolved situations or whatever emotions were there for you, but we just put a lid on it. We don't do it on purpose. It just happens. You just put a lid on it, and then it gets pushed to one side. And then somehow through life, we kind of get reminded, but we forget. And then we get these triggers and whoops. And the journey method helps us to find these hidden issues that we weren't able to resolve. And, you shared how you came to the Journey Intensive first through your mum. While I must have been on somebody's mailing list. I had completed studies I had set out to be working as a homeopath. I had completed my studies in the College for Practical Homeopathy in London, I think in '94. And then, I've been looking for more than just homeopathy, but I was already working in it. And so I was on a mailing list for alternative therapists. And when I got the invitation, it actually said something that I learned at a weekend with Deepak Chopra. You know Deepak Chopra, don't you?
Yeah.
So, and he said, and this was a weekend workshop, and it was totally, I was so green at that point. This is like mid-90s, but there was only two things that I understood, that I heard him say, and that I understood and made sense. And the first one was, in order for us to be healthy and happy, we need to access this infinite intelligence, this wisdom, this source, this love, this presence that we really are. And when we do that, we need to uncover traumatic memories, old traumatic memories that were unresolved, that reside in our cells. And when I heard that, and I thought, it's easy, but how do you do that? Yeah. How do you do that? And he didn't have the method. And then 2 years after this weekend, I get an invitation from Brandon, and it says, on day 1 of the Journey Intensive, you undergo a process that takes you in this infinite intelligence, this wisdom that I call source. And I thought, tick, that's one. And on day 2 of this seminar, you undergo a process that takes you to unresolved old traumatic cellular memories, and you can completely resolve them. And I thought, there you go, another tick. Those are the 2 things that you need in order to be happy and healthy. And so I tried to talk myself out of it. And in the end, a friend of mine from the homeopathic college said, come on, let's go together. And we did. And I honestly, in my arrogance, I only went because I thought I'm only doing this for my clients, for my
Yes.
patients.
Yeah.
I don't need any of this.
Yeah.
By lunchtime, I was so ready. I was cooking. Every
Mm,
part of my body was cooking. But it was day one. It was
mm,
day one, and it felt like somebody switched a massive light bulb on inside of me, and something that's been really asleep and numb for so much of my life literally woke up in an instant, and I
mm.
have never looked back. And I really feel like it was the biggest gift in my life. It really
Yeah.
was, which is why I'm still here today. And there is nothing airy fairy about Brandon's journey work. There's nothing, spiritual or whatever
That's
you want to call it.
that's the funny part, because to give it context again, back then I was still living in Amsterdam, and I was an Amsterdam boy. I had opinions about everything, and I'd seen it all, done it all. Had my spiritual background, blah blah blah. And then coming into, at that time, a room of, I think there were like 300 people, but half of them might have been dressed in a way that I was like very judgmental of, because those are the alternative people. The other half I just didn't like, or there was so much going on in my mind, even though I came from my own healing in a way, because I went insane with all my emotions. But looking at what it, from the outside, while sitting in it, it looked like, oh God, here we go. And then Brandon showed up on stage, and Brandon is Brandon, beautiful blonde hair, and she's very charismatic. And I was like, what is this show? Straight away, I was like, all my judgment was going off. What I didn't understand then, but what we know now, and what I knew after one day, was that it was just resistance showing up, trying to protect me from the emotions that were stored in the cells with those memory attached.
Yeah.
So I didn't know. So I was resisting. Then my mom came on stage. She was there in that seminar, and she got processed. She was like the demonstration journey processed by Brandon.
No.
That's what Brandon used to do, remember, on stage. And I heard that. And of course, I'm linked to my mom. So I hear some memory I've never heard of. I feel the emotions. So my whole body shuts down even more. So by the time that I get to the end of the day, I'm shut down. I can't go anywhere. Can't do anything. And my mind was telling me, see, this is all stuff that I don't need. Why did I come here? Blah, blah, blah. Like, I've seen so many people feeling drawn to the work because they read the
Yeah.
book, they heard about it, something appeals, and then they go like, no, this is not for me, because there's a fear showing up, and then the resistance shows up. That happened with me on day one, in all honesty. And on day two, I came back and I got a process straight away in the morning, early morning, because there was someone saying, hey, you look a bit down. Are you okay? I said, no, I'm not. I feel like shit. I hate this stuff. And I was really like verbal in that way. And they gave me someone who could sit with me and take me through a process, changed my life. After that, everything fell into place. It was like I needed to feel first that sort of resistance, but also to not buy into the stories I had around it. And this is what I love about the journey. When you just get real with it, it's not airy fairy. It has nothing to do with Brandon. Wow, it has everything to do with Brandon, because it was born through her own direct experience. But what she's done so beautifully is said, here you go, try it yourself. And she keeps on teaching, unless it's true for you, no one can tell you this is the truth. It needs to resonate. And this would always be my addition to it. You need to give it some try. You need to give it a try. You need to give it a whole weekend like that, the 3 days, to really feel like, what is happening here? And to only kind of comment on it afterwards, so that the experience can actually teach you, like, this is different from some kind of cognitive spiritual development course, or some personal growth motivational stuff, or some kind of guru showing up and say, follow me, because it's none of that. It's much easier and simpler, and it goes to the core of our issues so much deeper and so much quicker. And just to touch on that one thing that you use, trauma, because of course that is also a word that gets thrown around now a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't perceive myself as a traumatized kid at all, and I've had experiences in my life that were, you could define them as traumatic, but there was nothing in there that I would see as traumatic. Yet when I started my journey work, the memories came up that were pain-filled, pain-induced memories that I could not healthily deal with at that time because I didn't know how. And they got stored in my body. So even though I was a normal guy, regular guy, partying, working hard, doing sports, chasing girls at that time, all the stuff in my regular sort of life, this was actually working for me because it cut away all the crap. It was like, let's look at what is actually stored here. And once I got access to the cellular memories in that context of that creative intelligence, which is also then kind of guiding the body's intelligence, it just started to kind of come up. All these memories started to pop up and they got cleared out. And I was like, wow, this feels different. And I could see myself change in relation to people, friends, circumstances. My body started healing in different ways, all for the better. Nothing weird or strange about it, just feeling happier and healthier in myself. And still,
Yeah.
every time I do it.
It's for you, it's like 19 years now.
Years, yeah.
19 years, yeah. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I still use journey work today, and sometimes people say, but what do you still work on? And it's not that what do you still work on. Life presents us with something all the time, and sometimes there is a fear because of an uncertainty with work or with money or whatever. Then you have a fallout with a friend, and you really feel hard done by because somebody said something and you're really upset. And every issue, no matter how, in their everyday things, and if you really follow them, if you're really open with the surface emotion, this is never about that. It's always about something entirely different and from way back then,
Yeah.
So, and what I know for myself is that in these 25 years that I have been doing journey work, that my life has become or switched from a life that was pretty numb. I had everything. You see, I had a beautiful home. I was married. I'm still married, and it's my 40th wedding anniversary today.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we had a business that did well. Wealth-wise, we had pretty much everything that you could wish for. But on the inside, it was kind of, I was numbed out. And I grew up in a household where this was post World War II. So I was born in 55. So it was like 10 years after the Second World War finished. My father was a soldier. There were lots of things we just did not talk about. And on top of that, the child before me, my mum's second child, died when he was 7 weeks old. And my mother fell into a depression that was with her all her life. And so our house, our home, our family life was very depressed. And there was a time when, before the journey, I think it was a year or 2 years before the journey, I actually went to the doctor because I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what, and I was trying to explain what was wrong. And then I was trying to figure out, is it because I can't have children? Is it because of this? Is it because I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with me? So I went to the doctor, and the first prescription they wanted to give me was sleeping tablets and antidepressants. And I know that this is what my mum's been on all her life. And I have a phobia. And I was partly because I studied homeopathy that I could find a natural way of staying healthy. And so I was out of that doctor's place I took the prescription with me and I tore it up outside and said, anything, but I cannot go this route. I will not go this route. I got to figure out another way. And so, at that point, it was just external stimulants all the time to keep myself up. I didn't even think that I was depressed at the time. But it was when I really came here, I recognized how far away from myself I was, doing the things I thought I should be doing. I had no connection to myself. I was literally because of this numbness. There was no, I couldn't feel if something was right, if something was wrong, if something was good, if something was bad. I could only make it up in my head. And that changed on the first day of the journey. So I'm so deeply, deeply grateful for Brandon to bring this work in such a simple way so that it could be, as she said, I mean, some of the first words in her life seminar used to see, I didn't want to, what does she say, Arnold? I wanted to tell people how to
And
not to
don't,
tell somebody,
yeah,
not to tell somebody how to heal, but to find a way how you can access what is stored inside of you. And that is the beauty of journey work. And this is where the huge difference was for me, because at that time I was already working as a homeopath, and you sit for an hour with somebody listening to story of what's going on in their life and in the journey. It's like you just feel what this feels like, and you open, and all your answers are inside. Nobody's telling you anything. You find, and forgiveness is also another important part of the journey. So it's very wholesome. And my life just has been a life I got with every process that I did. And I'm sure you can say the same. It just gets lighter. And what remains out there is just more colorful, more rich, more joyous.
yeah,
Even if the world goes bonkers on the outside, there is still this contentment, this love, and inner peace that's here. And if more people had that, I'm sure somehow it would make it a big difference. And this is one of the reasons why I'm saying it again now. This is one of the reasons why we're giving this 70% discount off this time round at the Journey Intensive, 147 for this weekend. I feel like I'm a market woman selling something at a market stall, but it is so crazy cheap. And we had an interview, and then I'm going to hand back to you, Arnold, with an interview with one of our journey beloveds, Maria. And in the interview, she was asked if she felt that this was a good investment. And she said, if you could buy health and happiness, how much would you pay? How much is that worth to you? And I know that you can't even put money to it. There is no value of money that can be compared. And even at 497 at the full price, it doesn't, it's like, so what, but it's try it out. It's 147 euros, and just give it a go. Give it a go. What kind of things were your, I mean, you've seen so many people in the journey too, as co-host with Brandon, and kind of meeting people around the world with all sorts of issues. What kind of memories pop up now as I ask you, what kind of did you come across with other people? What kind of things did they bring?
oh gosh, it's so varied, It's so diverse, such a diverse range of people that have been coming, which is what I love about the journey as well. As I said, like I was very resistant and judgmental of whom I saw, showing up in that room, or that would now be in a digital room, as we did the online version. But yeah, I mean, people that showed up, like, it could be very, people, it could be people who've had very beautiful jobs or professions, like being like a carpenter, or someone who worked in IT, and it was very simple in terms of their life, etc. But they got hit by some kind of illness, and they would come and they're like, is this shit for me? Excuse my French, but it's literally that. They would even tell me that, and it would be like, big guys. There's one guy, two actually, one that I remember from Australia, one from Holland, and they would sit like this, I don't know about this stuff, is this really true? And it was like, it was all going over their heads. But by the time that they got to practice them, because you learn throughout the 3 days, you learn how to do this journey process work, the emotional journey process, the physical journey process. You get to do it yourself, and therefore you undergo it yourself as well, because you practice with a person of your choice. They would go in there and they would come out the other end like little babies, like what I mean by that is like completely without any resistance, without that, I'm the grown man here and don't sell me any bullshit type of attitude. It was like, oh my God, I feel like the universe, I feel amazing. I feel like so much lighter. I did not know that this memory would come up, and those kind of experiences are there with me to this day. And the other spectrum, we were in South Africa working there, and there's lots of trauma there, especially when people would be bussed in. Remember, we had the huge events, 600 people, 700 people, and then people would be bussed in from the ghettos. One of them was Alexandria. Was it that was the name, right? And one of those women who then at some point was practicing this journey process and access then a whole life of trauma, really, with in my mind, in my cognitive mind, something that's unforgivable. The people that were part of that trauma that she had to endure on a daily basis, to me, it's like those people, I have no good words. I would not even want to be in the same room as those people. But this is in the context of the ghetto. And she found, by just following the journey tools that she got taught there at the Journey Intensive, she found a way to get to access all the stored pain, to empty it out in a matter of, I think it was 20 minutes, if that. And I was with her at that time as well, as a trainer, as a staff member. And 20 minutes later, she said, "I'm ready." I said, "For what?" Because I'm sitting there with her, I'm hearing it, and I'm crying. I'm in the pain with her, just hearing it all while supporting her. And then all of a sudden, she said, "I'm ready to forgive each and every one of them." I was like, oh my God. And she did. She just forgave them. She came to forgive the unforgivable. And when I saw that, and this was at the early time of me working with the journey, it changed my life. It changed my way of looking at the journey method as well. Because prior to that, I had an idea like, well, sometimes, it's just, you can't forgive everything, and you can hope for the best. And that would be knowing how to deal with it, which is more a psychological or psychotherapeutic version of it. And with the journey, there's a way that you can actually deal with the biggest possible trauma, get it out of your system, and change your life, which happened to her as well. I mean, and anything in between. I mean, my own physical healing that was unexpected, where old injuries would just pop up in the process, and then the emotional root cause would show up, and literally something that had been blocking me on a physical level for many, many years, disappearing, like literally within that one process. It's like you could hear the click or this kind of sound, and it's like, that's creepy, man. That can't be me, And it's like it's all part of it, because there's such a when we open in that creative intelligence, which is, it sounds huge and it is so simple. That's what the journey method is really for. And once you open with that, in that context, everything is possible. As you talked about Deepak Chopra, he knew that from his research. He just didn't know how to. And the journey gave us the tools to deal with all these different issues. And I mean, I can go on for hours on what I've witnessed on helping other people and what I've witnessed in my own life. But I mean, that would be, probably a bit long and a bit boring at some point. So, but yeah, any walk of life. I've seen professors, highly educated, doctors and whatever, come to the journey, and all of a sudden say like, this has been the missing link. And all of a sudden they start using it on themselves and in their practice. And I've seen, people who have got everything to gain and nothing to lose anymore, and had hardly any money, coming to a journey intensive, and their lives would change. And it's like, it never ceases to amaze me. It never ceases to surprise me either, funny enough. There's always this, oh, it's wonderful to be in this journey intensive again, because I love it. I love the connection that shows up there. But every single time I get surprised by the power of the journey method, what it does, what it reveals, what it clears out of our system, and what people then start experiencing and start commenting back to us as well. Like they start sharing with us, like, this is what has happened. This is how I see the world now. It's like, oh my goodness, it's beyond what my mind can comprehend at times.
And yeah, there was, I don't know if you remember that article in the early days. I think it was not, I know it was written in the Sunday Times in London. And it was the journalist came to a journey weekend, and then she wrote an article, and it was published in the Sunday Times. And in the Sunday Times, they, for the key, or for the key article, they would get a cartoon drawn, and they had such a beautiful cartoon, because it was a woman with a kind of baggage that she carried over her shoulder. It was like a sack, she carried over her shoulder, and there was this mountain, and she would kind of go up this mountain with her bag of baggage. And on this, where she was walking up the hill, it was kind of dark and rainy and cloudy and really kind of horrible looking. And then she gets to the top of the mountain, and then all of a sudden she throws the baggage, she throws that cloth with all the rubbish inside away. And then the other side of the beach, she's skipping down the hill, and the sky is blue and the sun is shining. And it was so perfectly captured, because so often when I did the integration on Saturday night, I told them, I told the people about this cartoon, and it feels like on Saturday night they just hit the top of the mountain, and then they're starting to skip down, and it starts to get light, and a lot of the rubbish has been thrown away. And so it was really, really well captured in that particular cartoon.
It's beautiful. It's one of our mutual friends. He said at some point as well to someone who was commenting on, like, it's a really long time. And this was in my early days, and she said, it's a really long time. I did even 2 hours on my journey process. That's way too long. And it's like, 2 hours. Well, it's longer than Brandon might have told you that it could be, but 2 hours. And what did you deal with? Well, there was this huge issue from my childhood that I wasn't aware of. And yeah, it affected all of my life. And, there was medication involved, and there was, shutdown involved. I didn't know how to deal with relationships. And it was like, wow, two hours to deal with a lifelong, a lifelong condition of being limited, being imprisoned without even knowing why, isn't that worth it? 2 hours. And she was like, oh gosh, yeah. 2 hours of, uncovering that. And it's, of course, going with that drawing, it's not always comfortable, but at least it's that moment where you choose, like, the way I've been going doesn't work anymore. And that can be a very subtle thing. It can be the way that I'm dealing with my sports injuries is not sustainable. So I need to look inside. What else is connected to it? So I can actually, do my sports more freely, which is what I'm actually using the journey for at the moment. It can be anything. It can be very simple, but it can also be relationship issues, as you said. It can be deeper, health issues. It can be your fulfillment in terms of your job, your career. It can be anything.
Passion, enthusiasm, passion. It's all of that. And also, spiritual seekers. I mean, there's another group of people who are on a path like yourself. You know from childhood or from early age on that there is something else, and then you follow teachings or teachers or masters, and it's like still something missing. And the number of people who I've met in our seminars who is like, oh my God, I didn't know. I didn't know, And also, for if there is anybody listening, I mean, Brandon's teaching is based on Vedanta, and it's oneness, not two, not duality, but one. So coming home to the one inside. And I think another part of this, being passionate about what we're doing and why we started Real Talk, was also that this current world situation with a war going on, that I feel very strongly that whatever conflicts we carry inside, that we really start to look at ourselves and clear out the conflicts, because the amount of times then when people can't deal with what's going on outside, and then it's like so and so's fault, or it's this is the fault, or that's the reason to blame, or that, and all of that is actually an avoidance of feeling what's really going on here. And I know a lot of people who haven't done the work that we are doing. And I was at lunch a few weeks ago with a friend, and it's like there was so much anger in the conversation about this, about that, you know, about the people, about the war, about the petrol prices, about everything. And then and I know that there is big conflict in the family because there is breakup happening, you know, and people aren't talking and there is unresolved issues. And I know that the journey can help. And so there's a real ask for people to start here to resolve any issue, any conflict. And we already touched on forgiveness earlier on, and it was in the context of South Africa, and it was actually Nelson Mandela who said, not forgiving someone else is like drinking poison, hoping the other person dies. And forgiveness is never about the other person. Forgiveness is only ever about us. And I didn't know how forgiveness works, how it could be so real. And yet somehow in the context of what Brandon has created by way of the journey process, it becomes real. And you know when you're doing lip service or when forgiveness has happened. And Brandon herself has healed a massive large tumor size of a basketball by finding real forgiveness in a very, very violent household, and knew in an instant that something is shifting and has changed. And so it is an elemental part of also the work that we do, that the journey does. And if somebody is scared of, oh, I won't be able to do that, just trust, you know, just trust. And we never, that was the one thing I wanted to say, we never forgive the behavior or the actions that are being done. It's forgiving the soul of that person so we can let go of that issue. And we don't even have to be nice to them if we don't want to, you know, but just let go of the issue. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and the main difference there, because I was aware of forgiveness before I came to the journey, and you know, being on that spiritual path, like a lot of the next generation that is coming to the journey, you know, anyone between the age of say 25 and 40 will have heard about forgiveness, will have been on a spiritual path, or have some conscious awareness of, hey, there's more to life than, you know, working 9 to 5 and going, you know, having a retirement and then die, basically. So, and I hear a lot of it because I work a lot with that generation also in my own practice, and I hear the word forgiveness like I was speaking it back then as well before I came to the journey, and it's missing quite often, not always. It's a bit of a generalization, of course, but it's often missing that emotional connection with it, and that's what the journey method allows for. So I know from my own memories that I've been saying I forgive you out loud to people before I came to the journey, and it had no effect in the relationship, within my body, within my connection to any kind of circumstance. And the moment I allowed the journey method to work with whatever was there, it was once all the old memories had come out and the emotions that were stored there as well had been fully felt and expressed without any drama as well, because I hate drama. It's really something I'm not comfortable with. You know, the whipping it up, and this is not what is needed in the journey, but the actual connection with the emotions and allowing those cellular memories to be cleared out in a very simple way that we get taught at the journey intensive. Then it allows forgiveness to come through like automatically. It's like the weather system. It's like this vacuum, and then it's like, oh, here we come, the warm air. You know, of course I forgive. I'm ready to let go of that. It's no longer part of who I am, and that's such a different experience, and that immediately and over time leads to changes beyond what the mind can conceive of.
What we
And
can conceive. So
it's just, that's what I love about it. It brought that was one of the big elements in terms of what the journey did, that emotional connection to everything and awakening that without it using more rituals or mushrooms and other, I don't know, ayahuasca or other drugs or anything. It's like it's all here. And that
Yeah.
made it so easy and so down to earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Down to earth is a great one. I think
Yeah. Yeah.
down to earth, heaven on earth, down to earth.
Yeah, it
And
is.
unless you have any final words here, Arnold, I know that we kind of done 50 minutes already, and I don't want to take people too much time, but I know you and I could go on forever.
Yeah.
Because there's like 45 years of experience of having seen life-changing transformations in people, in families, in children, in old people, in young people, in everyone, and we would just love for more people to take this, to take what is now a gift. And there is events coming up in May on all major time zones. So we have events coming up on the European time zone. So CET, Central European, so whoever can participate. Also an event North America time or American time zone, and an event on the Australian time zone, all happening in May. And all of these events, all of these main events, have the same special offer. If you type in, when you book, regardless of where you see it, there's a promotion code possibility. Just type fearless 22, because it does take a bit of courage, but what you come out on the other end is fearlessness. So we decided to call it Fearless 22, which is, I think, what we need in this year, to absolutely be fearless and to dive in and just allow the preciousness of love and light to be what remains here, what takes care of our world, takes care of our planet, because obviously our heads aren't going to do it. So somehow, or our politicians. So anyway, please come and join us. The events are all up on our pages. You have plenty of opportunities. You've got the dates here in the chat box. You've got the links in the chat box. Come join us. Arnold is actually co-hosting with Brandon the European event. Yolana, who was with me last week, she's co-hosting the Australasian event, and Sharon Sedgwick hasn't been with me yet, but we're just trying to figure out the next date. She's co-hosting the North American or American time zone event. And then we have these events in different languages also. So just check us out on the website. Lots of love to everyone. Thank you for joining us. And please, if this is for you, great. If you bring your friends, bring your family, this is a really great time to take this into your life. It will make kind of life a lot easier and lighter, especially in times of so much turmoil. So my final famous words. Do you have any final famous words, Arnold?
No final famous words. I think everything has been said. It was wonderful to be here with you. And and also I'll open the door. I don't know even if it's appropriate or not, but if there's any questions that come up and people want to access me in that way, the door is open. Arnold@thejourney.com. Happy to share something else about the Journey Intensive that is coming up. Having been at those Journey Intensives 100 and something times, 170 times or whatever crazy number. But yeah, just to make myself available. If there are any more questions, I'd like to say, hey, I'm here. And looking forward to seeing whoever is coming.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us here today, Arnold. And thank you for joining us, and share this broadcast with whoever, and hope to see you. Thank you. Until soon. Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.